I want to welcome everybody to the CRTPA meeting on May 22nd. The time start is 1:30 p.m.
Commissioner, is your mic on?
Are the mics on?
Yeah, it's on.
Should I start over? Good afternoon, everyone. How are you doing today? Calling to order the CRTPA board meeting on Monday, May 22nd at 1:30 p.m. Let's see. Do we need to do a roll call, Mr. Slay?
Thank you.
Commissioner Lori Cox, Commissioner Austin Hosford, Commissioner O'Keefe. Here. Commissioner Maddox, Commissioner Minor,
Here.
Commissioner Matlow,
Here.
Commissioner Richardson,
Here.
Commissioner Williams Cox.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Slade, do we have any modifications to the agenda?
No, sir, we do not.
All right. Do we have any public comment on items not appearing on the agenda today?
I don't believe we have any speaker cards for that.
Okay. Do we have any items pulled from consent?
No, sir, just quickly, one note, we passed out a sheet to you here today that had a slight change on the UPWP amendment, revising an end date. So just want to pass it, just make you aware of that that's included, it would be included as part of the consent agenda.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Slay. On consent agenda, is there a motion on consent?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
All right, a motion has been made from Commissioner Richardson. A second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Williams Cox. All in favor of the motion to approve the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, Mr. Slay, on item number 6, roll call vote for agenda items. The first item here is the fiscal year 2023-27, the TIP amendments. Mr.
Yes,
Slay.
sir. We had 6 amendments, 5, basically dealing with cost increases. If you recall, since these are TIP amendments, we have to do a roll call vote. Unless there's any questions, we're ready to move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Slay. Are any questions or comments from the CRTPA Director Board members? Yes, Commissioner O'Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to confirm my understanding, these are, the amounts noted in the agenda are the increased amounts, not the new totals?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, is there a motion to approve the agenda item?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Richardson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second made by Commissioner Williams Cox. Roll call vote.
Commissioner O'Keefe,
Yes?
Microphone.
Commissioner Minor,
Here.
Commissioner
Yes.
Matlow,
Aye.
Commissioner Richardson,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams Cox.
Aye.
Did I get everyone? Yes. Thank you. Unanimously passes.
Thank you very much. Mr. Slade, can you introduce the item under CRTPA action?
Yes, today, Mr. Chairman, is a presentation or an update on the latest status of the Thomasville Road multi-use path. Jack Destrue was our manager for the feasibility study portion, so I'm going to turn it over to him. Excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Slade. Jack, thanks a lot. What we'll do here, I know we've got a number of speakers who'd like to speak on this item. What we'll do is we'll have a presentation from staff and from the consultant if they're present, and then after that, we'll open up to speakers, members of the public who'd like to speak. All right, Jack, go ahead.
So just briefly, back in January of 2022, 16 months ago, the board approved a feasibility study for the Thomasville Road multi-use path from Metropolitan Boulevard to Benton Road. At that time, probably within 2 months, we had a design budget and would approve that and move forward with the design of the project. And today we have a couple representatives from Mott McDonald here, as well as some DOT representatives to make a presentation. And then what we'll do is they'll provide you an overview of the project, and then I'll address some specifics that we had come out of the feasibility study and how that relates to the design. And then we'll open it up after that for you all and citizens as well.
Sounds great. Thank you, Jack.
Okay. So with that, James Johnson from Mott McDonald is here to provide a quick overview or an overview of the design, and then we'll move from there.
All right, so we have a PowerPoint, maybe. Jack, do we have a PowerPoint or?
Yeah.
Okay.
You have to love the technology.
Yeah.
Can't live with it and you can't live without it.
That's the truth, especially when all your presentations are on there.
JJ, while we're waiting on the technology to arrive and save us, could you just give us a brief overview of yourself and Mott McDonald?
For sure. I'm James Johnson. I work with Mott McDonald. We're working on behalf of FDOT for continuing services contract. And the gist of the project is to build a multi-use path along State Road 61 or Thomasville Road, like Jack just mentioned. Our scope basically follows the feasibility study. So the path will be on the east side of the road, starting at Benton Road up to Woodgate. And at Woodgate, we'll be crossing on the south side of the road. And then from there, it'll be on the west side of the road up to the end project at Metropolitan Boulevard. PowerPoint basically is going to show that. We just had a few typical sections that look pretty. Basically, to get per the feasibility study recommendations and what we're following is to move the curb line in. The travel lanes on the road will still remain at 11-foot lanes. The existing curb line, the curb will be taken out and the back lane will be removed. The curb will be moved in to remove the back lane on both sides of the road. And that's so that we can make room to fit in the new shared use path. We're trying to stay within the right of way. We're limiting trees as much as possible, or avoiding trees as much as possible, as well as utilities. Basically, that's pretty much all we were going to say. We have a public meeting that's scheduled June 27th. It's a hybrid public meeting, so it's both online and it's also in person. If you want to join online, it's northwestfloridaroads.com. It'll be on there starting, I think, June the 6th. The materials will be available. If you want to come in person, it'll be at the Thomasville Road Baptist Church. That's on the corridor. It'll be, like I said, June 27th at 5:30 p.m. I think that's about all I was really going to say. I was going to show you a picture and let you know that, so the lane widths are not changing. On the road, we're not changing anything on the actual Thomasville Road as far as travel lanes go, but we will be taking out back lanes.
JJ, if we do get the PowerPoint slides up, would you like to go through them? Because what we could do is we could actually go and have public comment right now. We've got a number of speakers and that if in the meantime we do get the slides available, we could then show them after public comment.
Sure. Yeah, we're going to do whatever you want to do.
Why don't we do that? It'd be better, ideally, in a perfect world, it'd be good to see the presentation first and have everybody watch that and then have some public comment. But I think under the circumstances, we'll just go with this approach.
Sure.
1, 2. So at the moment, I've got 5 speaker requests. First, I've got Ms. Jane Mann. Now, if you wouldn't mind, yes.
I'd like to waive my time to speak, but I do support the Thomasville Road multi-use path.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Next, we have Mary Kay Falconer. And as you come up, once you come up to the podium, if you wouldn't mind saying your name, your address, and then you have 3 minutes.
I'm Mary Kay Faulkner. I live at 2140 Armistead Road. I actually just want to commend the team for the work that they've done. I'm very impressed with the design so far, and I'm looking forward to getting some more information at the CMAC meeting, in addition to hearing the presentation today. The Citizens Multimodal Advisory Committee, some of you new to the CRTPA might not know that we have a citizens group that meets as well, and also attending the June 27th public hearing. So just appreciate that opportunity and want to support the project.
Great, thank you very much, Mrs. Falconer. Next, we have Mr. Hugh Aaron.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Hugh Aaron. I currently live in a rental, but we are building a house right off of this project at 2840 Asbury Hill Road, which is sort of at the entrance to Waverly. And when we were researching where we wanted to live, I had read about this project, and it was really a key factor in us deciding that was really the right place for us to be. I really like to ride my bike for both recreation and transportation. I'd like to minimize the amount that I have to drive my car. I think it would be tough without this project, but I think with the project, it's really going to help in terms of us getting around especially for transportation reasons, the grocery store, restaurants, whatever. And I've reviewed, I guess it's called the 60% design that's on the website. Great information on the website. And it looks terrific to me. I did have one question. I don't know, I know this is comments. Can I ask a question?
Yes, let her rip.
Yeah, so on my side of the road, which is the Waverly side, oh, I didn't mention, I don't think, that my front door is going to be 450 feet from Thomasville Road. I mean, I am really on this project. There's an existing sidewalk now in front of our neighborhood, and but the sidewalk's really bad. It looks like it's been there a long time, and it's beat up, and I'd probably walk on it if that's all I have, but I couldn't really tell from everything I was studying on the website whether that sidewalk is being redone.
So I'd hardly call what's out there a sidewalk, but I get what you're saying. That asphalt patches stuff, is that what you're talking about?
No, it looks like it's concrete. It's very
Oh, okay, down closer to
narrow and
Gardenia.
kind of broken up.
Okay, so the sidewalk that's out there now will be replaced by a sidewalk from Gardenia all the way to Woodgate Way?
Oh, it will be?
Yes.
Great.
And and JD can clarify this for me, but I'm pretty sure it's 6 feet wide, and it'll vary in terms of how far away it is from Thomasville Road, depending on the location.
Well, that's really going to be fantastic. That's real icing on the cake. Final comment is, as I studied the plan, I really liked that so much consideration went into preserving the trees and vegetation and protecting them. I thought that was terrific. So I'm just very excited about this project, and thank you all.
Mr. Aaron, thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it. Next, we have Mr. Tommy Thompson.
Good afternoon. I'm Tommy Thompson. I live, 989 Parkview in Piney Z, and I'm right on the Lafayette Heritage Park, Tom Brown bikeway there. Similar to what's been said, the reason I moved to Tallahassee, 15 years ago, was the infrastructure that existed for outdoor use and ability to ride my bike. However, one of the biggest problems I currently face, since I live on the east side, is getting up to the north side, where the north terminus of this planned project is. And having this as an opportunity would greatly enhance my opportunity to go up there safely, because currently riding on Thomasville is a bit of a challenge, to say the least. And notice that there were 3 deaths this week, pedestrian and cyclist deaths. And I think anything we can do to enhance the infrastructure for human-powered transportation, would be greatly appreciated by not only myself selfishly, but for my granddaughters that live here in Tallahassee that are going to be, I hope, raising their families here. Thank you.
Mr. Thompson, thank you very much for coming. Appreciate it. And our final speaker is Ms. Jane Fletcher.
Hi, I'm Jane Fletcher. I am currently serving as the president of Capital City Cyclists, and I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you. We're really looking forward to having this much safer way to transit on Thomasville Road. You know that research has shown that the way to keep pedestrians and cyclists safe is to keep them separate from cars. And this multi-use path will go a long way to keeping cyclists and pedestrians out of the way of cars. We also really appreciate the diligence in preserving the trees. There are a lot of beautiful trees along that corridor, and the fact that this design is preserving them, we think is really wonderful. I do have a couple of things that I didn't see in the design that I wanted to mention. In the signage section, I didn't see anything on trail user speed limits, which I think there should be, and signs about who yields to whom, like cyclists should always be yielding to pedestrians. I think those kinds of signs would be very helpful on the trail, and also signs where it's specifically a real congested area. I think that would be helpful. In places where the trail gets close to the road, I think it would be helpful to have some barriers. There are now some aesthetically pleasing barriers where it's only 2 feet away. It would be helpful to have some of those kind of barriers. And then also paint markings where the trail crosses a road or even a private drive would be helpful to make sure that cyclists and pedestrians realize that they're approaching a drive or a street. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is that there are several places around town where they've been painting artwork in the crosswalks, and they have had an FSU study that has shown that it slows traffic and it helps people stop behind the crosswalk rather than in the crosswalk. So that would be something to consider also. But thank you so much for moving this forward. We're really going to appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fletcher, and thank you for taking the time to join us today. Appreciate it. Thanks to all of our speakers. Really appreciate that. Any news on?
I think we've got at least Jack's piece of it. I'm not sure about JJ.
Yeah.
Okay, so looks like we've cleared out the gremlins out of our technology here, so we're ready to go with the PowerPoint slides.
This was our PowerPoint slide. Basically, I was just going to give a quick overview, which I think I kind of did earlier. The graphic on the right is kind of an overview that shows where the path and the new sidewalk will be in place. I didn't mention that earlier, but yeah, we will have a new sidewalk on the west side of the road from Gardenia Drive up to Woodgate Way. There's no additional right-of-way required on the project. And the project, though, is currently not funded in the DOT 5-year work program. This was the existing Thomasville Road. There's a sidewalk on the right side of the road. You can see there's currently bike lanes and 11-foot travel lanes. And then this is the first proposed typical section where we'll be removing those existing bike lanes, adding a multi-use trail on the east side of the road, and we'll be adding the sidewalk on the west side of the road. So, like I said, the travel lanes and the median are not changing from the existing. They'll be staying the same. And then finally, we had the last typical here that showed the trail on the other side of the road. In this area, there is an existing 5-foot sidewalk on the east side of the road that will remain. Any existing sidewalk that was out there, we're going to leave in place. As far as the schedule goes, the development process, we are currently in design. We did just submit our 60% or phase 2 plans to DOT last month. And we're scheduled for 90% plans during the summer, and we'll have the final plans during the fall. One more slide. So, and then this was the hybrid public meeting I was telling you about, scheduled for Tuesday, June 27th. Anybody wanted to scan, there is a QR code there that you can pick up from a cell phone, but essentially it's just NW, the northwestfloridaroads.com/virtual meeting. I'm going to turn it over to Jack.
So both of these presentations will be put up on the website so that there's, so you can access that and get that information. And we can send out that QR code as well to make sure that everybody's got that. So starting off with kind of where JJ left off, what I wanted to do is kind of go into a little bit of detail that comments and suggestions that we had coming out of the feasibility study in terms of safety. Again, looking for the issue regarding the bicyclists not really utilizing that bike lane. There was a few, but for the most part, people did not want to utilize that. So in order to make the path fit into this location the best that it could, we suggested removing the bike lane, which was, again, a part of the feasibility study and approved by the board. And that allows for a lot more space to expand that and provide that back of curb distance that JJ was talking about. And then with sight distance, that's going to really be improved throughout the corridor because, again, when you move the bike lane, remove the bike lane, your field of vision you're able to move forward, so your field of vision is wider than it is when you're kind of looking at a very limited space, kind of like looking out of a funnel. Now you have a wider funnel look out, so you'll be able to have a better sight distance at all the locations. The signage, there is a signage plan, and those are good suggestions. Jane made those suggestions, and we'll address that with JJ in the group. And then at Woodgate Way, the path will cross over from the east side to the west side, depending on how you want to look at west side to east side as well. And it'll be on the south side of the intersection. And I'll pull this up just to kind of give you an idea. There'll be a pedestrian or user refuge island so that there'll be a barrier in between the vehicles, and then comes the path, then comes another part of the median. It'll be on the south side of the intersection to avoid that, if you look at the top right, to avoid that right-hand turn, the continuous right-hand turn that's available for people moving to the west out of Woodgate. And again, that's in conjunction with the Star Metro stop. So you've got those connections of that multimodal connection of having people who are usually utilizing the bus being dropped off there or being picked up there, and then being able to use the path for whichever way they want to go. For the trees, I think that's been spoken to quite a bit today from our citizen comments. Again, just to kind of remind everybody that our effort, as all of our efforts are, is to minimize the impact of the environment. There's no tree greater than 4 inches that's going to be removed with this design. There's a selective clearing and grubbing plan associated with this, and that's on the link as well for as part of the website. And then for specific tree locations, I'll run through each one of these, but I wanted to let you know where they were at specifically, is McCord Park, Rabbit Hill, Savannah Trace, and Preakness Point, because these were specifically pointed out. And in terms of McCord Park, going into this, we have it's on 3 different sheets within the plan, so I'm trying to follow the plan here. So you're going to see that it's going to taper down to 2 feet on the far right-hand side of the picture, whereas typically it's about 4.5 feet. And that's just coming into McCord Park on the south side, moving north. You can see the north arrow up there on the diagram.
Because the slope is pretty steep.
That's where the slope starts to initiate. So yes, so you've got to move it to avoid that whole situation with the trees. And then moving closer to Armistead Road. Again, what you have is the distance to the sidewalk and the trail, current sidewalk and the trail, our path being reduced with the introduction of the path, and then you're going to have a 2-foot buffer in between back of curb and the path as it moves along. And it looks like a short distance because of the maps, but it's depending on how fast you're walking, how fast you're riding, it moves along pretty quick. So, and again, this is to avoid having to take any of the trees or any damage to the trees. And the selective clearing and grubbing plan will identify how the roots of the trees and all those other features are going to be addressed via an arborist and some other review processes. Okay, so this is for Rabbit Hill. I'm sure you all may be familiar with this. When you're trying to get out of Rabbit Hill and you look towards the south, there's a tree right there, and it's kind of leaning back over towards the direction away from the road. And and that tree is a viable tree. And in order to protect that tree, there's a bifurcated path that's going to happen on here. The path closest to Thomasville Road is going to be 5 feet, and the path on the back side is going to be 6 feet. So you'll have people running along and then going around the tree. And that'll be signed as to direction that people should be utilizing regarding that bifurcation around that tree. For Savannah Trace, those of you who are familiar with this one, this is where all the oaks are kind of congregated and they're hanging over the road. We're not going to be touching that at all. That's going to be staying the same. The issue was how far back can we go to address the protection of the root system. So initially, I think kind of hard to describe, but the path was much closer to the trees. And so we were able to, not we, the designers were able to push that closer to the fence to protect the trees and then have that be ADA compliant, so that we're not having to put any kind of switchbacks. There will be handrails on there for that to happen, though. So that is one of the things that comes in with the ADA protection, is to have handrails for people to use going up or coming down that. And then at Preakness Point, Preakness Point to the north, there was a tree. Originally, I think it was bifurcated around that tree, but what we're able to do, given the right-of-way that we have out there, is to go around the backside of that tree, as opposed to trying to kind of split the path at that point. And those are really the 3 points that were pointed out in terms of where we have issues with those trees, trying to make sure that we're not impacting those trees. And then for sidewalks, again, we talked about this. Here's the gardenia one on the west side. On the graphic, it looks like it's on the north side, but it's on the west side. That's the path or the sidewalk that's going to be constructed and reconstructed, because part of that is a sidewalk. And then that's going to go all the way up to Woodgate and then tie it to the path north of that point. For the landscaping, there are a couple issues regarding the Greenbrier Lane and Tallahassee Nurseries. The the landscaping at Greenbrier Lane, they had done some pretty intensive landscaping, and so part of that, just a little bit of that's going to go away when they rebuild the driveway. And again, that's in DOT right-of-way, along with the Tallahassee nurseries. We were trying to protect those trees, so we were able to build the path in that area. And there's one, and maybe JJ may remind me, I think there's one flower bed that's being impacted to the north of the entrance, and that's the only impact that they're going to have in terms of Tallahassee nurseries. No trees being removed. No impacts. That will be mitigated if it comes close during the construction, again, with the selective clearing and grubbing plan. And then, now, if you have any questions, comments, I guess we went through all the citizen comments.
Yes, sir, we did. Thanks, Jack. I really appreciate it. Let me have just a couple of comments here real quick, and then we'll hand it off to any other CRTPA board members who'd like to speak. You touched on this already, but Ms. Fletcher had some good questions and some points to make about the signage on speed limits, who yields to whom, that type of thing. Also, possibly, painting and the access point, the roadway, and artwork in the crosswalk. So just I think those are good points raised to the extent that FDOT and the consultant might be willing to take a look at some of that. I think it'd be really helpful. You mentioned that already, but I just want to kind of highlight that a little bit. I think it was Mr. Aaron who brought up the sidewalks on the west side from Gardenia to Woodgate Way. That's a really big part of this project, which I support. I think everyone supports that. The sidewalks currently there, whether it's asphalt or concrete, are in very poor shape. And I think Jackie said, can you really call them sidewalks, right? It's been a long time. It's been a hazardous part of the community. Ms. Cox. We actually saw pictures of that at a previous CRTPA board meeting about the poor condition of those. So getting that sidewalk rebuilt is a huge benefit for the entire community there. And then also, listen, I've been a skeptic of this project. I think I've said the reasons why. But I do want to thank FDOT for its work. I want to thank Mott McDonald for the work on saving trees and listening to his concerns that we had. And then, Jack, I want to thank you and the CRTPA team for your work on this. We've got a long way to go in terms of we're at 60% design now. We've got 90% design probably complete later this summer, and full design complete later in the fall, I think.
Yeah.
And then we don't have funding for this yet. It's for the construction. So we still need to figure out what and when those construction dollars will come through. But I did want to thank you, Jack, and the team, and FDOT and Mott McDonald for their work to date. So with that, any comments or questions from members of the CRTPA? Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too wanted to commend staff and our consultants for the work that they've done on this path. As you know, we got a lot of pushback when it was initially proposed, and now we've got residents from the area singing its praises and looking forward to this being completed. I also wanted to bring attention to the fact that without any prompting that I know of anyway, you all have put forth extreme effort to save the trees along that route. I think there was only 4 that were impacted along the route thus far. And I say that because had one of those trees been taken out, this room would have been packed with people who were concerned about that one tree. And so the fact that that is not the case suggests that we're doing something right. I wish maybe we could hear from them in that regard as well. But I'm just, I wanted to bring light to, again, to what you all have done, the extra effort that you've put towards saving the trees along that route. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I think we had Commissioner O'Keefe and then Commissioner Matlow.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you to the staff for putting this together. And again, I also really appreciate being careful to not remove any trees. I encourage any developers listening to follow your footsteps. And I'm actually very supportive of this project. And I'm looking forward to getting it designed, getting it funded, and getting it in place. Because as one of the commenters mentioned, he said 3 deaths in the past week. I only caught 2. I caught in 7 days, 1-year-old hit and killed, and this weekend, another cyclist hit and killed down the street. And we see way too much of this. And paths like this that use the most effective way to keep cyclists safe, which is separate from the road, are much appreciated. And I'm excited because this is connecting two very different areas to provide a safe path. And I just want to echo the comments from the president of Capital City Cyclists on the intersections and the signaling, and echo Chairman Minor's comments. And just would know that I really support and am looking forward to very robust signage so that people know how to safely, so that pedestrians and cyclists know how to safely use the pathway, and so that vehicles know that there's a cyclist coming. I know, and then another thing is I'm curious, and when it comes up in the design phase is, are we considering any raised crosswalks that help are more effective than just signage? And I had one specific question. You showed the intersection at Woodgate Way, and there were crossing lanes with the median rescue point. You used a different word, but the word stuck in my mind is
Refuge.
Refuge, there we go. Are those going to have those yellow flashing lights like down in Midtown where you press the button and the roadway lights flash?
I would anticipate, that we're not going to be doing that. It'll be in conjunction with the signal itself.
Gotcha. Okay.
The actuated signal that you'd push, and then that would have to wait like the cycle, like everybody else would, and then cross when that's available.
Excellent, thank you. And then finally, I'm just looking forward to seeing this come to fruition. And personally, I think we talk about this sometimes as recreational activity, and the advocates for it are usually the recreational users, which is an important group, and as was reflected in us recently being a trail city and a trail county, and so much of the advocates talking about that's what brings people here. This is also a necessary transportation system. We cannot continue adding lanes, is not proven to reduce traffic, and we can't keep moving in a direction where we don't encourage and provide a safe way for people to use vehicles other than cars. And so I'm looking forward to getting this built and actually getting my bike off the wall for the grand opening. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Keefe. Commissioner Matlow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm pretty impressed with where the design is so far. I think you went above and beyond to kind of address a lot of the community concerns that we did have around safety. Nothing's perfect, but I think that it's well thought in there, as well as the protections of the trees and Tallahassee nurseries and all the folks that came out last time to address those concerns up front. Well done on that. I know it's included in the item, but can you talk about in front of the Circle K and what the plan is there?
Sure. So right now, the Circle K has 3 entrance points. I want to say the 2 side entrances are about 24 feet across, and I want to say the middle one's like 36 feet, something in that range. So in terms of safety, to provide a higher level of safety, the plan is showing for the closure of the middle, the longest driveway, and creating that grassed path in there as well. So they'll have the availability of the north and south entrance point. The north entrance point you'll still be able to be southbound on Thomasville Road and make that left-hand turn in there. I don't know of anybody that's on the northern one. I don't know of anybody who makes that left-hand turn and heads to the middle one. If they are, that's kind of weird. But they will still be able to make that.
There's an empty gas pump. They might try to.
Right. So.
And that at times too.
So yeah. So that'll be closing for the safety of the users on the path.
Okay. Thank you. I guess my only last comment on it, Mr. Chair, is I think we're all committed to make this the best project it can be moving forward, and I think we're on the right track, and we'll continue to bring it to the public to get more feedback as we move along. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Matlow. Any other comments or questions? Ms. Lawson-Scott.
This is a new thing. I've never seen that before. I'm a new kid on the block, so that's pretty cool. This is the first time I've seen, just recently, since I just got on the CRTPA and newly elected. So being one that travels Thomasville Road many, many times a day, this is very exciting. And I appreciate you all coming to speak on those on behalf in favor of it. I think this is something that's very much needed for our community out on the north side of town. And I will make one shameless plug. Having taught pedestrian and bicycle safety for 33 years here in Leon County to our elementary students, and that's a program that is still being taught, and it is needed now more than ever, as you all highlighted. And I would tell our students, we have so many traffic fatalities with pedestrians and bicyclists in Leon County. And so a shameless plug, if there are any people out there, the Capital City Cyclists, y'all have been a great supporter of that program, but we are in need of new bicycles for our program, for our elementary schools. And they go to all the elementary schools and we teach pedestrian and bicycle safety. So that's a shameless plug for any grant money or anything. I was going to talk to you, Suzanne, too. So to continue to educate our young students on the importance of bicycles and bicycle safety and pedestrian safety. So I'm excited about this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lawson-Cox. That is the daily PSA for today. Very important, very important. Thank you very much, ma'am. Any other comments or questions? All right. Now, this item does not require us to have a motion, so we will go ahead and move on to the next item. Again, to members of the public, thank you again very much for being here. For anyone who may be watching, thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And the next meeting on the Thomasville Road Multi-Use Path will be June 27th, hosted by FDOT, as Jack had mentioned, and also Mr. Johnson. So we'll see you there if you're interested. Mr. Johnson, thank you again very much. Appreciate it. All right, Mr. Slay, next item.
Next up is the DOT report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Greg. Actually, in your agenda is the full handout that will be provided at that meeting that does have the QR code. So that's another option for any citizen to go to and scan that to get the details.
Great. Mr. Falk, I did have one question I was going to ask Mr. Johnson, but it's probably just as well to ask you. On June 6th, the maps, drawings, and other project information will be available. How is that different from the design documents that have been released so far from CRTPA?
This will be a more condensed, it's a user-friendly version of those documents that people can review in advance of the meeting.
Great, perfect. Thank you very much. Any other comments, Mr. Falk?
We just wanted to let the CRTPA board know that the legislature did approve funding for the Moving Florida Forward plan. The governor has yet to sign that particular portion of the budget. We are still hoping that the segment of Capitol Circle is fully funded in that plan, but just as soon as we're made aware of that and where that construction is going to fall, we will coordinate with Greg so he can let everyone know.
Great. That's great news. Thank you very much, sir. Really appreciate it. All right, Mr. Slay, the Executive Director's report.
Just got a couple of things. I mentioned to you last month that we were working on some redesignations for the strategic intermodal system. That's where about 75 to 80% of the DOT funding flows to. As I mentioned as well, the portion of Capitol Circle that's currently under construction is the last portion of the SIS in our region that is capacity deficient and has money allocated to it. We've made some suggestions to the district, actually met with them last Thursday to discuss that. They were receptive to it. So we'll be bringing that back to you all next month for a formal recommendation to DOT to make some changes. Those include Crawfordville Road, the portion of Capitol Circle that Bryant just mentioned, and a couple more facilities. So hopefully we can get those changes through the district and central office and hopefully open up a bit more funding for some of our roads here in Leon County. And then lastly, we've got some virtual project priority and TIP meetings coming up. And Suzanne, I forgot to write down the dates, so if you would give them the dates.
On May 31st, it'll be a virtual meeting from 11:30 to 1 p.m. And that will be advertised in the Tallahassee Democrat next Sunday, as well as an email blast going out now this afternoon or first thing tomorrow. And then for Gadsden County, we rotate every year in terms of having one public meeting in person in our rural counties. So this year we will be holding it in Havana on June 1st from 11 to 1. People can come in person. And then again, there's plenty of information in the notice that will also other ways people can comment via email to myself or through our contact us on the website. And we'll take comments all the way up to the night before your board meeting on June 9th.
And we'll send out a notification to you all when those get ready to go. So
Great. Great.
Mr. Chair, that's all I had.
All right, thank you very much. Any notes on the future meeting dates?
No, sir, I think
Okay.
the calendar's there, and that's it.
All right. Okay, any items from CRTPA board members? Commissioner Richardson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to go back to the Thomasville Road multi-use trail, Greg, and ask, is that funding going to be part of our legislative budget request for next year?
Commissioner, we have not done that in the past. You know, the practice has always been for the last probably 20 years. Generally, the fear is if you get a project that's funded through an appropriations and the governor vetoes it, you have issues with if you've got other funding on that project. We have not considered that as of yet, but the last 2 cycles, they have used, and I'll do the air quotes, new money for some of these member projects. So I think once we get a better idea of how that may play out, that may be indeed something we put in as a legislative request.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Richardson. Anything else from anyone else? Commissioner O'Keefe?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. These are things that should be and are be hard to talk about. I waved up these articles and things, people have already seen them. And we have a unacceptable rate of traffic, of pedestrian and cyclist fatalities and serious injuries in Tallahassee and Leon County. And as I looked into this last week at the urging of some constituents with the latest news, I see we have the Tallahassee-Leon County Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan under CRTPA. And I know in our last meeting we have a plan and we set a goal of 0 fatalities by 2040. And those mostly, as I recall, were long-term type initiatives. And so I should have a couple questions, but if those lead to more, I'll quit and ask for an agenda item. Do we collect data specific and throughout the year on the number of vehicle-related pedestrian and cyclist injuries and deaths?
Mr. Slay.
Yes, sir, we do. We actually did a pretty deep dive on pedestrian and bicycle fatalities about 2 years ago as part of those safety performance measures. We can bring that back certainly and talk about it. I believe the Safe Streets for All program that came out of the last federal legislation, we'll be bringing that plan to you next month for approval. That's got a few projects in it. I think one of the things that we saw from that is we need to concentrate more on particular corridors. So part of that plan will involve some additional planning on some of our more problematic corridors. Okay. What we've deemed the high injury network is what it's called.
Thank you. Then what I'll do is between now and the next meeting, I'll get with you.
Sure.
And you can walk me through the details of that data. And then if you need to bring up it again, I will. But thank you.
Anything else, Commissioner O'Keefe?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Anything else from anyone else? All right. Our next CRTPA meeting will be June 19th at 1:30 in this room. This meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.